Welcome to another CHRO Conversation, hosted by the Center for Executive Succession at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm your host, Anthony Nyberg, and today we are speaking with DJ Casto. DJ is the Executive Vice President and CHRO for Synchrony, one of the nation's premier consumer financial services companies. As a member of the executive leadership team, he is responsible for the people-led development programs that strengthen the company's culture, drive business growth, and nurture talent. DJ serves on the boards of Jobs for America's Graduates, Build On, and the Master of Science in Industrial Relations and Human Resources Executive Alumni Board of West Virginia. DJ, it's really terrific to have you here on campus. Thank you for coming down.
I'm happy to be back on campus.
So you are someone who, as a CHRO, but comes from a unique kind of accounting background to start with. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, I got my undergrad in accounting from West Virginia University, and at the time I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go start my first job in corporate America. And I actually met with one of the professors who used to be an HR leader in one of the corporate organizations, and he talked about the value of having kind of that P&L financial background and the power it could bring to the work we do in HR. And so I got my master's in industrial labor relations and had the ability to join PepsiCo and then GE and now Synchrony, and I've leveraged that foundation in a lot of what I've done.
Can you say a little bit more about how does having that accounting background help you in your role? Many people don't see HR as needing that kind of background.
Yeah, I just think it's always benefited me on two fronts. One, just an understanding of how the P&L works. I also, leverage that in a lot of the discussions and conversations I'm having with the leaders that I support. All of us are business leaders first and foremost, and so as we think about the P&L of the business, how do we help hit both the short-term targets and the long-term strategy? And so by understanding those core foundational elements, it's just allowed the conversation to kind of elevate in a variety of ways.
Now, many companies have been kind of requiring people to come back into the office, and the financial services seems to be even more aggressive than a lot of companies. But you all have taken a bit of a different approach. Can you share what your return to work or return to office mandates or policies have been?
So, pre-pandemic, we were a 99.9% in-office culture. Like most companies, we would unproductively debate whether a role could or could not work from home. But during the pandemic, our business model was unique in that we could allow all of our employees to work from home. We don't have brick and mortar banks. We have a digital bank. Our contact center associates around the world had the ability to actually service our customers from their home. And so we were able to do that in about 3 weeks through the cooperation of our tech teams and operations teams. It was a remarkable event. And so as they got settled into their homes and started to increase their productivity and understand how to do both the personal and professional all in the same setting, we went out and pulsed our employees. And we thought we were being very innovative at the time. We said, hey, would you want to come back into the office 3 days a week? Or do you want us to formalize some opportunity that allows you kind of flexibility and choice? 86% of that employee population came back and said, we'd love for you to formalize kind of this flex and choice model. And so as you do active listening, you have to be prepared to get those results. And so it was a moment where as a leadership team, we looked and we said, if our employees and we didn't predict that was going to be what they would tell us, because we had great culture and great communities in these hubs pre-pandemic. And so with that voice of our employee, we started a journey on kind of reimagining our way of working kind of end to end. And we announced that we were going to give all employees flexibility and choice, not get into this process of defining which days you come in. We did declare that you had to still live near a hub and that there would be moments, intentional moments where we'd want our teams to come together either for work or projects or onboarding or training. And it's really allowed us now over 4 years to test and learn a variety of ways to maximize our physical space and allow our employees to be the stewards around how they show up. And it's all anchored in trust, and we've seen great engagement scores. Our business has performed well. And again, I think we have a unique business model that allows that parity, that you don't have and have-nots. All of our employees have flexibility and choice.
And we've talked about it a little bit, but what is it that you think might be key to yours that allows for, even while so many members are remote, are really deeply engaged and thriving, and how do you create strong teams and groups when people are remote?
Well, I think we, at the same time that we changed the way we worked, we looked at kind of what's that ecosystem that you need to put in place to ensure you're staying connected with the workforce. So we've increased significantly the amount of pulse surveys we do with our workforce, constantly looking in small subsets of questions anchored around performance, anchored around health and wellness, anchored in goal clarity and objective setting. And so at the same time that we gave people flexibility and choice, we actually put more rigor around things like performance management. We went away from the annual process and went to a quarterly cadence where the employee and manager are connecting quarterly. We added another step around goal setting. That's the only discussion that they have at the beginning of the year. Everything's anchored to goals, because if you're going to drive accountability, you got to have clarity around that specific and measurable goal. And then the last thing that we've done is we've trusted our workforce. We said, when it makes sense, when you're seeing a friction point start to develop, a project starting to slow down, there's some disconnect with regards to the goal clarity between the employee and manager, that's the moment where you need to come together. So instead of being kind of abstract around these purposeful connects, we've been very clear that they should all be anchored around performance. And then as a adder, it should be around cultural connection. And so our way of working is to allow people to be their best both personally and professionally to drive peak performance. And we're unapologetic on that last piece, because this is all in service of ensuring we're meeting all our stakeholders' needs.
You mentioned that you've really invested a lot in employee health throughout. One of the areas that I think you all are unique in doing really remarkable things is around employee mental health. Can you share a little bit about what you have done to try to really promote that and help all employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is we've just started to reframe this really important topic across our entire company, and just be very open and acknowledge that just like our employees have told us for decades that they need investments in physical wellness, thinking about access to the right medical doctors and providers, having spaces on our campuses like gyms, that we should entertain and elevate the same level of dialogue around mental wellness. And so in doing that, we've really looked at kind of the a la carte menu of offerings that meet the diverse needs of our workforce. How do you give people ability to have mental wellness breaks like you would encourage stretching before physical exercises? And so we've looked at partnerships like with Thrive. So we have a company that we've partnered with that offers a 60-second mental wellness reset, and it's embedded in the workflow of our contact center agents. And so if they get a tough call, one where the customer had really high expectations that need to be resolved, instead of being routed another call, we route a 60-second reset. And that is a guided meditation that allows them to go through a breathing exercise. And we've seen real productivity gains on giving them that 60 seconds to do the deep breathing, do the reset, and be able to take the next call. So you can't just talk about these benefits in an aggregate. You really have to think about the persona and the needs of each of your workforce, and then figure out ways to drive real access. The second thing we've done at corporate headquarters is we've centralized all our campus hiring. We had over 150 interns that were a part of last year's class. I always do a session with them about our employer value prop, right? So what is the employee value prop that really makes sense and resonates for them? Of that 150-ish employees, 70% told us that the number one benefit that would be a differentiator on whether they would or would not think about joining a company was free access to a therapist. Again, that was not something, back to allowing data to help drive decisioning, that we would have predicted. And so as we got that stat, which was just as a profound stat as the 86% of our employees telling us that they wanted to reimagine the way they work, we took a step back and said, how can we provide that access to this cohort that really needs it and wants it to drive their peak performance? And so we have hired an on-site therapist on our global headquarters that any employee can use at any moment. We've also added 22 wellness coaches. Those are more in virtual settings, so an employee could have a one-on-one session. A frontline manager could include one of those wellness coaches in one of their team meetings or sessions, really around destigmatizing this concept around mental wellness, and then really educating them on all of the benefits and offerings we have across Synchrony.
Those sound like really amazing programs. One of the areas that seems to be both promising to help and, of course, creating some anxiety for some people is AI and Gen AI really in kind of the last year and a half or so. Where do you think we are in the journey of Gen AI and particularly how in HR?
Yeah, so this is a topic. We've actually joined a cohort of companies that all are a part of Great Places to Work, which is a company that facilitates our survey administration and then also does a ton of benchmarking with Fortune on the top 100 Great Places to Work across the US, and then they have global affiliations as well. And so we've joined together as a cohort really to lean in thoughtfully around how to productively elevate the dialogue with the workforce on the benefits of AI and generative AI. Because what we don't want is the workforce to be scared that there is a direct correlation that this investment would correlate to job elimination. And so we've started to get ahead of that. In our generative AI kind of philosophy and kind of mission statement around the company, that we are investing in ways to reduce tactical work and provide you more efficiency and productivity into the work you do. And we believe that. We believe that generative AI is going to be one of those foundational shifts. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be one of these technology moments that will reset, again, how we work, how we use our human capital, our talent more strategically. And we've been talking about this for decades, right? What is the way in which we could free up? We all have backlogs. Anyone that's working in an agile way, we've got this backlog of work that we'd love to get to. There's always constraints with regards to additional FTEs and resources we can be able to provide. We believe that generative AI is going to be that game changer that's going to allow us to actually start to gain more capacity, being able to achieve more of the backlog faster, bring a lot more joy back to some of the work, and so that our individuals are not so focused on the tactical and can spend more time on the more strategic work that we need to do to provide a better customer experience. We can accelerate our product roadmaps faster. So that's how we're handling it. We are pulsing our workforce, so we've added generative AI questions to our quarterly pulse surveys to kind of baseline how are they feeling. I would say, to be transparent, our associate population, our frontline workforce, has the most questions. It's not that they don't trust that could happen, but in the absence of providing them kind of clear examples and roadmaps, that group is telling us through our pulse surveys that we need to educate them more. And so by including it now in our active listening circles, it can help inform how we better educate, inform, and drive greater transparency into our longer term strategy as it relates to generative AI.
Now, we here at CS, we talk a lot about what makes a strong executive leadership team overall. But can you share a little bit about what makes a really strong HR leadership team and how you organize that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, some of the descriptors I'm going to provide are not kind of net new concepts, right? But I think, and we talked about this earlier in the discussion, all of my team, we spend a lot of time making sure we're grounded in the short-term and long-term strategy of the business, ensuring that they have really good foundational business acumen as they're going to support, and that's the COE leaders all the way to the HR generalists. Like, we've got to make sure that everyone has clarity around our short-term goals and our long-term strategy, and we build our organizational design as well as our goals and objectives around how to enable that. So first and foremost, it's that deep business knowledge and business acumen. The second piece that I would say is that I always appreciate and look for my team is kind of curiosity, right? So as things are being presented to us, and there's oftentimes that we are one of the key enablers in moving this work forward, are we asking the right questions that represent all of our stakeholders? How is this going to show up and help, our employee base? How is this going to help us to accelerate the short-term or long-term strategy? So I think that curiosity is really important in the work that we do. I never lose sight around the reason our department exists is advocacy, right? So we are the heartbeat of the organization. We have to continue to keep our employee base front and center in the decisions we're making. Listen, we're a for-profit organization. We're going to always have to make the decisions that are best for our shareholder value, but ensuring that we're bringing our employee base along, that we're investing in that employee base, that they are getting what they need to be their best both personally and professionally to drive that peak performance is really, really important. And then I'd say, the last element for me is just outside-in thinking. So, for my team, I never want us to kind of rest on our laurels of kind of today. Are we thinking about 5 years from now, some of these shifts from the fundamental impacts of generative AI to how we're thinking about total wellness, doing a lot of active listening. I love being on campus. Campus provides me a lot of great insight on what is important to this new workforce. And we can all debate. There's always generational standardization that happens on how we think about one generation versus the other, but that is our new workforce. And so how are we evolving with them? How are we unlocking some of the things they need to be their best? So those are just a couple examples of things that I talk about with my team all the time that we have to keep front and center. It's what makes, I believe, a highly effective HR organization.
All right, well, speaking of the new workforce, I see our students lining up. They're eager to get to spend a little bit more time with you. So once again, thank you very much for coming to campus. We sincerely appreciate having you here.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You just listened to another CHRO Conversation. Today, DJ Casto of Synchrony shared his views regarding the role of HR as a strategic partner in driving business success. On behalf of all of us who are associated with the Master of Human Resources program and the Center for Executive Succession here at the University of South Carolina, thank you for joining us.